Have you ever felt like you are the most successful failure in the world? Let us look at the story of Bunn, a man living in shadows. He was once the golden child, a shining beacon of pride for his entire family, and living proof of his parents' successful and dedicated upbringing. But as the echoes of applause from his many childhood achievements began to fade away, Bunn realized he was wearing a suit that was far too tight. This garment was woven from the heavy expectations of others, and every single day it seemed to tighten, slowly making it harder for him to breathe. Now, the bright lights of the stage have been replaced by the cold, flickering glow of a computer screen in a lonely and silent apartment room. He sighs deeply, is feeling the weight of 1,000 unsaid words and the crushing pressure of a life that no longer feels like his very own. The trophies on the shelf are now just relics of a past version of himself, a child who didn't know the cost of being perfectly flawless. He wonders when the pride turned into a prison and why the path that was supposed to lead to happiness only led to this quiet, cold room. Being the best was the only language he was ever taught to speak, but now he finds himself silenced by the very success he once chased. Time feels like it is running out, yet he is paralyzed, trapped in a cycle of perfection that has finally reached its breaking point today. Bunn was raised on an old contract that promised safety through hard work, but the world he entered operates on entirely different and chaotic rules. The traditional path to stability is crumbling, and the compass he was given as a child is spinning aimlessly in this new, unpredictable digital era. In a world of automation and rapid change, that being a good student is no longer enough to protect someone from the harsh winds of economic shift. He feels like a legacy machine in a world of advanced AI, struggling to find his purpose when the old benchmarks of success have completely vanished. The skills he spent decades perfecting are being mirrored by algorithms, leaving him to wonder if his human effort still holds any real value anymore. The bridge between education and a stable career is breaking, and those who were taught to follow the lines are falling through the widening cracks. Life has become a puzzle where the rules change every single minute, leaving the perfect students lost without a clear answer key at the back. The economic landscape is a shifting mountain range, where yesterday's peaks are today's valleys, and the former golden children are struggling to climb again. Everywhere he looks, he sees a new kind of success that he wasn't prepared for, yet making his old achievements feel small and increasingly irrelevant today. The contract of his youth has expired, but no one told him how to negotiate a new one in a world that values speed over depth. He is fighting to remain a human being in a system that views him as a data point, a struggle that is draining his very soul. The storm of the future is here, and the umbrellas of the past are leaking, leaving the bright minds of yesterday soaked in cold uncertainty. He realizes that the finish line he was promised doesn't exist, and he is running a marathon on a treadmill that only goes faster and faster. In psychology, this state is often driven by defensive pessimism, a mental shield where one prepares for the absolute worst to avoid the pain. Because he was never allowed to fail as a child, failure has become a monster so terrifying that he chooses to hide before even trying. Yet his mind is constantly on high alert, reacting to every small mistake or criticism as if it were a direct threat to his entire existence. When your self-worth is tied exclusively to your achievements, every single error feels like a fatal wound to your very identity and your soul. He isn't afraid of the work itself, but rather the possibility that his work might not be perfect, which is a risk he cannot bear. This paralysis of perfection turns every new opportunity into a source of dread instead of a chance for growth and discovery in his life. The pressure to be right the first time, every time, has robbed him of the joy of learning and the freedom to experiment and play. He carries an internal jury that is always judging his every move, a council of voices that demand a standard that no human can reach. Every past success has become an anchor rather than a sail, dragging him down with the weight of having to maintain that same high level. The very thing that made him special as a child, his drive for excellence, is now the very thing that is slowly suffocating his adult life. He is haunted by the ghost of the boy he used to be, a ghost that refuses to let him be just an average human. This psychological trap is silent and invisible, but it is as real and dangerous as any physical cage, locking him in a state of exhaustion. To survive, he has had to freeze his emotions, becoming a machine of productivity while his inner world slowly turns into a wasteland of ice. He has forgotten how to want things for himself, having spent his whole life wanting things that would make his parents and teachers proud. He is a spectator in his own life, watching the days go by while he remains stuck in the grip of his own high expectations. Bunn still arrives on time, still finishes his work, and still smiles when necessary, but the internal pilot light has finally gone completely cold. Yet this is quiet burnout, a state where you are physically present but emotionally absent, having given everything you had until there was nothing left. He is not being lazy. He is simply using his remaining energy to keep his head above water in a sea of never-ending demands and stress. Quiet quitting is often a desperate attempt to reclaim a tiny piece of oneself from a world that demands every single ounce of your spirit. He has stopped trying to exceed the impossible standards and has settled for just surviving the day, a radical act of self-preservation in itself. The weight of being a Superman for so long has broken his spirit, leaving him with a profound tiredness that sleep can no longer fix. He has become a shadow of the person he was meant to be, a hollow shell that functions perfectly but feels absolutely nothing at all. Days blur into weeks, and weeks into months, all marked by the same rhythmic, hollow performance of a life that has lost its true meaning. Even in social settings, he is a ghost, performing the role of the successful son or friend while feeling a million miles away from everyone. Even his sadness is crystallized and controlled, a testament to the years he spent being told that vulnerability was a sign of total failure. He is lost in a wilderness of his own making, a forest of shoulds and musts that have overgrown his natural path and his heart. His internal battery is not just low, it is damaged, unable to hold the charge of ambition that used to power his every waking moment. He envies the simplicity of a life without goals, a life where being happy is more important than being at the very top of the list. He is one of many, a whole generation of high achievers who have hit a wall and are now sitting in the dark, trying to recover. This silence is his only refuge, the only place where the world stops asking him to be more than he is capable of being right now. Bunn's revolution didn't start with a loud bang, but with a quiet decision to finally stop being useful to everyone else's dreams and goals. He began to realize that he has intrinsic value simply as a human being, regardless of his productivity or the accolades he might receive from others. The philosophy of Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what we can truly control, our own actions, our own values, and our own inner peace. He started to do things for the sheer joy of doing them, relearning the forgotten art of being a beginner and making mistakes with a smile. The chains of perfection began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of freedom he hadn't felt since before he learned how to read and write. He discovered that being ordinary is not a failure, but a luxury and a privilege that allows one to live a life of true authenticity. He learned to stop fighting the current of his own needs, and instead, he started to flow with the rhythm of his own natural spirit. Happiness was no longer a destination at the end of a long, hard road, but a small spark found in the quiet moments of today. He began to build a new life based on connection and presence, rather than competition and the constant need for external validation from the world. His perspective shifted from the grand scale of success to the intimate scale of a life well lived, one small and meaningful moment at a time. He reclaimed his past by stripping it of its power over his present, finally allowing himself to be a person instead of just a trophy. The revolution from within was complete, not because he changed the world, but because he changed the way he chose to live within it. Bunn's journey eventually led him back to the people who started it all, not to blame them, but to connect with them as a man. There was no need for long explanations or apologies. His presence, for the first time in years, was finally whole and real and enough. Yet he is part of a bridge generation, those brave enough to dismantle the old, broken values, to build a more human and compassionate future together. To all the Bunns out there struggling with the weight of the world, remember this: your perfection was never the reason you were truly loved. If you see yourself in his story, take a long, deep breath. You have done enough. You have fought hard, and you are worthy of rest. We are breaking the cycle of burnout together, one person at a time, by choosing to value our humanity over our productivity and our output. Growth doesn't have to be loud or fast. It can be a quiet, steady force that eventually breaks through even the hardest and coldest ground. Leave a heart in the comments if you are ready to start your own revolution, to choose yourself over the ghost of perfection today. We are building a new world where every child can grow without the crushing weight of being perfect, a world that celebrates the beautifully human. You have done a great job just by being here. Now, go and live a life that is truly, wonderfully, and perfectly your own.